issue regarding why rising Somali numbers, this person saying, scares us, right? And this has been the debate so far, because I think people are greatly shy to really discuss about how also the Somalis also are, the population is exponentially growing so far. A ticklish issue, but people are scared to really talk about it. But we've seen people saying, oh, while they're busy, what's in the campaign trails, we're busy in the bed.
In the bedroom. To that, I think that is it's a caricature.
It's a caricature.
It's just a caricature, and Somalis are part of Kenya. They've been here way long before Kagwanja or anybody else came to this region of Africa. All the books written. I'd like to really respond to this.
So that we can clarify it, because I think when we have such articles, then we are talking. But it is good that we actually discuss about it.
Let's really do it logically. Let's do it in logical.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously, it's easy for me to respond because I know a few things. One or two things about this. I think that there's this idea in Kenya of who's in and who's out. Yeah. And whenever someone who's on the outside wants to come in, there's a huge hullabaloo about it. I don't think that the Somali numbers compared to the other major ethnic groups, there is a huge rise in the numbers of Somalis. There's no question about that. But that's fine with me. I have no problem with that. What we need to really look at, and we really ought to oppose, is whether or not that when a group of people who historically haven't been part and parcel of the deal, the economic, the political, and social deal in the country, trying to get in, there's going to be feathers that are ruffled. But I think for this country, that no group should make any apologies for the other group. Mm-hmm. We're part and parcel of this country, contributed to the freedom struggle. My family was involved in the Land and Freedom Party, and we armed the Mau Mau. When the Kapenguria 6 were arrested, they were arrested in my uncle's house. Mr. Mohammed Hassan is one of the unsung heroes of the liberation struggle, who was sentenced to death by the colonial government. The Mau Mau who are fighting in the hills were not without arms. They were not getting it from the Dingiras around Central Province. People were buying them from other places and supplying it. Other Kenyans were doing that. And many people are involved in the freedom struggle of this country that are not counted. Now that the communities that are growing up, the Somali, the Borana, the Turkana have oil, the Pokot, the people who have been outside in the margins want in on Kenya, and we ought to welcome them because they have something to contribute. Second, that Debal, we have the devolution system, and people now in all parts of Kenya are getting direct payment for development for their counties. And that's a good thing, because in Mandera, in Garissa, in Wajir, in Lamu, these development is going to be led by those people who live there. And this is part of what we call nation building. Kenya was not only made up of people from Kikuyuni or from Luo land or from Western. There is 40, 50 other groups in this country, and they are part and parcel of this country, and we ought to welcome them.
Right. Okay, let's say from Dr. Hassan Khanija.
Yeah, first of all, the rise of Somali numbers don't scare me, because for me it gives me more options for Arosto, which is a very delicious meal. So I will never complain about that. But number two, any publication should never have that headline. It is extremely difficult. Yeah. It is what we saw in Nazi Germany.
Yes.
Yeah, it is what we saw in Rwanda.
That's what I'm saying. We should actually discuss it.
Those are the kind of headlines I see in Breitbart News that has actually funded hatred in the United States. You're creating the otherness that doesn't exist. How about Evitwa? Why the rise of Kikuyu numbers, for instance, scare us? How do you think Kenyans are going to feel? The rise in Luya numbers, or the rise in, no, that is, we're talking about xenophobic behavior and tendencies. And actually that's what we're having. Yes. It's extremely dangerous, and it has led to genocide and ethnic cleansing in other countries. And that whoever is the editor should never carry that headline there, because it's extremely wrong. And as Hashi has been saying, we've de-emphasized learning of history in this country, and I think it should be made part of a compulsory subject, because the Somali community in this country is actually native to it. It's been here longer than some of Bantu languages, or the Bantu communities before they actually came from Congo, down here. So to paint this is extremely dangerous thing that we should not be engaging in it.
Right. Let's say from Irungu
I've
Hilton.
been raising my hand like
Yes.
I'm in school.
Like,
I'm in class. This thing, you know, it struck me for two reasons. One is, of course, the us.
yes.
We need to ask, who is us?
Yes.
Because obviously Somalis are not included in that definition
Could
of
we just
us,
have back the...
right? Or Somali Kenyans.
Yeah.
The second thing that struck me also was that they sadly used a piece of research that the Society for International Development, an organization I used to work for, to justify some of the arguments there. And I think, you know, if I my colleagues, we would be horrified that the analysis that we did of inequality is now being used as a justification for essentially what is the beginnings of hate speech and exclusionary language. I believe in the freedom, the right to free speech. But the right to free speech dies on the deathbed of hate speech. And I think that's what we have to say, that as we move towards the census, we need to be very careful that these numbers are not used to demonize, to discriminate against communities that, as Ashia said, are as Kenyan as any other community.
All right, and of course, this is on the editorial page of the Star. It's a comment, and they're saying here, with tables being turned, afraid that once they are numerous enough to control state resources, they will treat the rest of us just as we have treated them since independence.
So he's actually saying that the Somalis have been treated very badly.
Let me.
I mean, this is such a foolish.
Let's hear.
Let's hear from Peter Kagwanja.
I think the first thing we observe, personally, if I really had the capacity, I would sue this gentleman and I would sue the paper. You know why? Yeah. Because it's the beginning of the end of the Kenyan state. Because the moment you go that us versus them, and start to, and when you talk about the Horn of Africa, I take my point from the Horn, not from Kenya. Now, the Somali is one of the largest community. Only that just a chunk of them are in Kenya. Why? Because it's one of the most homogeneous communities in the Horn. The second would be the Oromo.
The largest ethnic group in Africa.
No, it's not. The Yorubas are. It's not the,
no, it's different.
Whichever. We can check the figures. But the truth of the matter is that Oromo is another huge community. Once upon a time, the largest community were the Maasais, right? And so on. Now, if you look at the Somali from the Horn of Africa perspective, it's a powerful nation. But in Kenya, the Somali are not valued for their numbers. They are valued for their contribution to this economy. And therefore, it is numbers versus use. I mean, if you wish, the contribution. And nobody has any doubt in terms of the Somalis being a powerful minority. And they may never be the majority in numbers, but they will always be a powerful group. I mean, go to Rwanda. The Tutsi can grow, but they can never outnumber the Hutu.
Right.
Because of the population. So you have to look at it that way, and we have to stop funding us versus them.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, us versus them, because the Somalis are Kenyans.
Right. Kamau Mwiga is a lecturer, and he also is a political analyst.
No.
So he is a scholar as well, and he's
the one who established Ozonia is also an intellectual. The state we have been talking about, the Orania state,
in South Africa.
He is one of the leading South African intellectuals.
So how will actually our international publications treat such a sentiment? Because this is, when we're talking anti anti-Semitism, this is actually on the same vein. When Hitler is saying that we should exterminate the Israelites because they're a scum. On the map of the world.
Yeah, but long before there was genocide in Europe and in Germany, there were decades of hate language, hate speech against the Jews, the Romas, the Gypsies, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the others. And I hope this is really not where we are going to get into. I haven't read the content of what Kamau Mwiga has said. I hope he didn't. He seems to be a lecturer. I hope he is not the one who's saying we are afraid of the tables being turned turned, afraid that once they are numerous enough to control state resources, they will treat the rest of us just as we have treated them since independence. Now, maybe this is an editor who put this, maybe it's the lecturer himself, and if this is the case, then we are admitting that we have actually treated Somali very badly, and that Somalis are going to revenge once they are enough to control resources. This is sad, and this is sad for such a newspaper to actually put across. It is hate speech. It should not be allowed to be published anywhere.
All right. Yeah. Okay, we need to move on. We need to move on. Could we just wind up on this, please?
In fairness, I'm sure if Kamal was here, he would probably make this point. So the language in the article is actually quite ambiguous. So he's speaking about others, but the way that he writes, it's as if it's his own view. And as I think, as Mustafa said, we are afraid. The language, the way that it's been packaged, has a particular perspective. But I think a critical point where he says, in a just society where a tribe does not matter at all, where a person from a tiny tribe is just as likely to be healthy, to be well-fed and educated, where the tribe of a president says nothing about the flow of resources and opportunities, there would be nothing to fear about the population growth of any community.
Yes.
But we have thoroughly failed to create such a society. And I think what he's saying essentially is there is a historical injustice that has not been corrected, which could lead to xenophobia in the context of Kenya. So I think that that point needs to be made.
He might have meant well, but it's just the way
it has been packaged.
Really bad.
Okay.
So can I just, the last thing is, you know, when I was born, most Somalis, when they're born, people take an AK-47 and shoot it right next to the ear. That's why we don't hear properly. And when you speak on the phone, that's why you can hear us shout. So I don't think you need to come look for us in our cameras, because you'll be in a lot of trouble. If I can say that tongue in cheek.
All right. All communities in Kenya have been oppressed in their own way.